A young waitress's face slammed into the table. Once, twice, 3 times. Blood mixed with spilled coffee. A rich boy laughed while his girlfriend filmed it on her phone. The whole diner watched in frozen terror. No one moved. No one breathed. Except one man. In the corner booth, a stranger, in navy digital camouflage, slowly set down his coffee cup. His German shepherd rose to its feet, a low growl building in its chest. And something in that quiet movement, something in those dead, calm eyes, made the rich boy's smile disappear. He had just made the worst mistake of his life. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. And if this story moves you, please subscribe and follow this story until the very end. Let's see how far this journey takes us together. Ryan Mitchell heard the first impact before he saw it. The sound was unmistakable. Flesh against wood. The kind of sound that cuts through everything else and leaves silence in its wake. He'd heard it before, in places most people only saw in nightmares. His hand stopped halfway to his coffee cup. At the center of the diner, a young woman's face was pressed against a table. A man in expensive clothes held her by the hair, grinding her cheek into the wood, while his friends laughed. "Say you're sorry again," the man demanded. "Louder this time." "I'm sorry," she gasped, tears streaming. "Please, I'm so sorry." He yanked her head up and slammed it down again. Ryan's German shepherd, Ghost, went rigid under the table. A growl vibrated through the dog's chest, low and dangerous. "Easy," Ryan murmured, but his own body was already shifting, muscle memory taking over. 14 years of combat hadn't left him. It never would. "You ruined my shirt," the man's voice carried across the diner. "Do you have any idea how much this costs? More than you make in a year, you stupid—" "Preston, that's enough." A woman in a white dress touched his arm. "People are staring." "Let them stare." Preston Hargrove III shoved the waitress backward. She stumbled, caught herself on a chair, and stood there trembling. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye. "My father owns half this town. They can watch me do whatever I want." Ryan studied the scene. 4 young people, early to mid-20s, the kind of clothes that cost more than his truck. The kind of arrogance that came from never facing consequences. The waitress, her name tag read Sophie, wiped blood from her face with shaking hands. She was young, maybe 24, with dark hair pulled back and the exhausted eyes of someone working double shifts. No one in the diner moved. A fisherman at the counter looked down at his eggs. An elderly couple pretended to read their menus. A mother pulled her young son closer and whispered something about keeping quiet. Ryan had seen this before too. Fear. The paralyzing kind that made good people invisible. "Someone get me napkins!" Preston snapped his fingers at Sophie. "And a new shirt. You're buying me a new shirt." I can't afford." "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you spilled water on me." One of Preston's friends, a broad-shouldered kid in a polo shirt, laughed. "Dude, just let it go." "She's not worth it." "She's worth exactly what I say she's worth." Preston grabbed Sophie's arm. "Now apologize to my girlfriend for making a scene." "I'm sorry," Sophie whispered. "I'm so sorry." Pathetic. Preston shoved her again, harder this time. She fell, catching herself on her hands, and stayed there on the floor. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Ryan stood up. The movement was slow, deliberate. The chair scraped against the floor, and the sound cut through the diner like a blade. Ghost rose beside him. 70 pounds of trained German shepherd, tan and black coat rippling over coiled muscle. The dog's amber eyes locked onto Preston with predator focus. "Let her go." Ryan's voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the weight of a man who had given orders in places where disobedience meant death. Preston turned. His eyes swept over Ryan's navy digital camouflage uniform, the green and brown pattern of the NWU Type 3. His lip curled. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who's asking nicely." Ryan stepped forward. "Once." "Oh, this is perfect." Preston laughed and glanced at his friends. "A soldier playing hero. What, did they let you out of the army for lunch?" "Navy." "Whatever." Preston released Sophie and squared up to Ryan. He was tall, maybe 6'1", with the build of someone who'd played lacrosse in prep school. But his stance was wrong. His weight was forward. His hands were open. Amateur. "Listen, G.I. Joe, I don't know what backwoods base you crawled out of, but around here, my family's name means something. So why don't you take your mutt and get back to your corner before I make some calls?" Ghost's growl intensified. Ryan didn't look down, but he felt the dog's readiness through the leash. One word, that's all it would take. "I'm not going to tell you again," Ryan said quietly. "Apologize to her, pay for her medical bills, and leave." "Or what?" Ryan held his gaze. "Or you're going to find out why they trained me." Something flickered in Preston's eyes. Not quite fear. Not yet. But the recognition that maybe, just maybe, he had miscalculated. Then it passed. "You know what?" Preston smiled. The smile of someone who had never lost. "I think I'd rather see what you've got." He threw the first punch. Ryan had been waiting for it. He sidestepped, caught Preston's wrist, and twisted. The motion was fluid, almost gentle, but the result was immediate. Preston's arm locked behind his back at an angle that made him cry out. "Let go! Let go of me!" I asked nicely. Ryan applied pressure. Not enough to break anything, just enough to make the point. "You should have listened." The friend in the polo rushed forward. Ghost intercepted him, teeth bared, forcing him back against a table. "Stay," Ryan commanded without looking. The friend froze. The other two, another man and the girlfriend, scrambled backward, phones out, recording everything. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" Preston's voice had gone shrill. "My father will destroy you. He owns the sheriff. He owns the judges. He owns this whole—" "I don't care who your father is." Ryan increased the pressure slightly. Preston whimpered. "What I care about is that young woman you just assaulted. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize. You're going to give her $5,000 for medical expenses and emotional damages. And then you're going to leave this town and never come back." "You're insane!" "Maybe." Ryan's voice was calm. "But I'm also the guy holding your arm. So what's it going to be?" The diner door burst open. Red and blue lights flashed through the window. Two deputies rushed in, hands on their holsters, followed by a man in a khaki uniform with a silver star on his chest. Sheriff Boyd Tucker. He was in his 50s, thick around the middle, with the weathered face of someone who'd spent too many years making bad deals. His eyes swept the scene and landed on Preston. "Mr. Hargrove, are you all right?" Ryan didn't release his grip. "Sheriff, this man assaulted a young woman. I have witnesses." Tucker barely glanced at Sophie, still sitting on the floor, blood on her face. "Let him go. Now." "He committed a crime. Arrest him." "I said let him go." Tucker's hand dropped to his weapon. "Or I'll arrest you for assault." Ryan measured the situation. Two deputies, both nervous, both with hands on their guns, but not drawn. The sheriff was angry, but controlled. And behind it all, Preston's smirk was returning. He knew how this would go. He released Preston anyway. "Smart move, soldier." Tucker stepped between them while Preston scrambled backward, rubbing his wrist. "Now, I don't know where you're from, but around here we have a way of handling things, And it doesn't involve strangers putting their hands on respected members of the community. Respected? Ryan looked at Sophie. He just slammed her face into a table, multiple times. Everyone saw it. I saw a clumsy waitress who tripped and fell. Tucker turned to the diner. Anyone here see different? Silence. The fisherman kept his eyes down. The elderly couple studied their menus. Even the mother with her son looked away. That's what I thought, Tucker smiled at Ryan. It wasn't a friendly smile. Now, I'm going to give you one chance to collect your dog and leave. Otherwise, I'm taking you in for assault, disturbing the peace, and anything else I can think of on the way to the station. Ryan felt Ghost press against his leg. The dog was still rigid, still watching, but waiting for the command. Sophie, Ryan spoke directly to the waitress. Are you okay? She looked up at him with terrified eyes. Her mouth opened, closed. She wanted to speak, he could see it, but fear held her silent. Don't talk to her. Tucker stepped closer. Don't talk to anyone. Just get out. Ryan held Sophie's gaze for a moment longer. Then he nodded slightly. A promise she probably didn't understand yet. Let's go, Ghost. He walked toward the door. Every step felt wrong. Everything in his training screamed to stay, to fight, to protect. But he knew something none of them did. This wasn't over. Not even close. As he passed Preston, the young man laughed. That's right, walk away. Go back to your base and play with your guns. Leave the real world to people who matter. Ryan stopped. He turned his head just enough to meet Preston's eyes. You assaulted that woman in front of 15 witnesses. You did it while your friends filmed it. And you did it wearing clothes that cost more than most people make in a month. Ryan's voice was soft, but every word landed like a hammer. Men like you think money makes you untouchable. But I've spent 14 years hunting men who thought they were untouchable. He smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. I always found them. Something in Preston's expression shifted. That flicker again. The recognition of miscalculation. Ryan walked out. The sunlight hit him like a wall of heat. Ghost stayed close, still alert, still ready. They crossed the parking lot to Ryan's old pickup truck, and he opened the passenger door for the dog. Good boy. Stand down. Ghost jumped in, but didn't relax. His eyes stayed on the diner door. Ryan climbed into the driver's seat and sat there for a moment. His hands rested on the steering wheel. They weren't shaking. They never shook anymore. But inside, something had awakened. Something he'd thought he'd buried with Maria. His wife. 6 months dead now. Cancer had taken her body. But the stress had started long before that. The calls, the threats, the collection notices that came every day, sometimes twice a day, from a lending company that charged interest rates that should have been illegal. It had taken Ryan 3 months after her death to trace those loans. 3 months of digging, following shell companies and false names, until he found the source, Hargrove Financial, owned by Preston Hargrove II. The same Preston Hargrove, whose son had just beaten a young woman in a diner. The same family that owned the sheriff, the judges, and half the county. Ryan had come to this town for a reason. He'd been watching, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. He hadn't expected it to come like this. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know who you are. Meet me behind the library at 6 p.m. Come alone. A friend. Ryan stared at the message. Ghost whined softly beside him. I know, boy. I know. He started the truck and pulled out of the parking lot. In the rear-view mirror, he saw Tucker and his deputies escorting Preston to a shiny black SUV. Saw Sophie, standing in the diner doorway, watching him leave. Her eyes held something he recognized. Hope. The desperate, fragile kind that came from finally seeing someone stand up. Ryan merged onto the coastal highway. The ocean stretched endlessly to his right. Maria had loved the ocean. She'd always wanted to retire near the water. "We'll get a little house," she used to say. "Nothing fancy, just somewhere we can hear the waves at night." She never got that house. But Ryan was going to make sure the men responsible paid for it. He reached under his seat and pulled out a folder. Inside were 3 years of documents, financial records, court transcripts, police reports. Every family the Hargroves had destroyed, every victim who had lost everything to their predatory loans, including Maria Mitchell, including himself. The library was on the edge of town, a small brick building that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. Ryan arrived early, parking in the back lot where the shadows were deepest. Ghost stayed in the truck, watching, ready. At exactly 6 o'clock, a figure approached. A woman in her 50s, gray-streaked hair pulled back, wearing the simple clothes of someone who worked with her hands. "You're the one from the diner," she said. "The one who stood up to Preston." "Who are you?" "Marianne Cole, Sophie's aunt." She stopped a few feet away, studying him with eyes that had seen too much pain. "I watched what you did, and I watched what it cost you." "It didn't cost me anything." "Not yet," Marianne's voice dropped. "But it will. The Hargroves don't forgive. They don't forget. And they definitely don't let people humiliate them in public. I'm not afraid of them." "You should be." She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. "But if you're really willing to fight, then maybe we can help each other." Ryan took the envelope. Inside were photographs, documents, names and dates. "What is this?" "Evidence. Everything Sophie and I have been collecting for 2 years. Marianne's eyes hardened. "Preston has done this before. 6 other women that we know of. Assaulted. Beaten. One of them ended up in the hospital for 3 weeks. Every case disappeared. Every victim was paid off or scared off." "Why didn't you go to the authorities?" "We tried. The sheriff is on Hargrove's payroll. The district attorney is Hargrove's golf buddy. The judge who handles most cases in this county, he owes Hargrove $500,000 in campaign contributions." Marianne laughed bitterly. "There are no authorities here. There's just power. And the Hargroves have all of it." Ryan flipped through the documents. Medical records. Police reports marked unfounded. Settlement agreements with enormous numbers and strict confidentiality clauses. "This is good," he said slowly. "But it's not enough. Not for federal charges." "I know." Marianne stepped closer. "That's why I need to know, who are you? Really? Because regular people don't look at Preston Hargrove the way you did. They don't talk to Sheriff Tucker like that. And they definitely don't carry themselves like they've been to war." Ryan was silent for a long moment. Then he opened his own folder and handed it to her. Marianne's face changed as she read. Shock first, then understanding, then something that looked like hope. "Oh my God," she whispered. "They did this to your wife?" "They did this to hundreds of families. My wife was just one of them." Ryan's voice was flat, controlled. "She needed experimental cancer treatment. Insurance wouldn't cover it. We were desperate. Someone recommended a private lender who could help. Fast money, they said. Flexible terms. Hargrove Financial. We didn't know. The paperwork was buried in shell companies. By the time we figured it out, we were trapped. 23% interest, fees on top of fees. And when we couldn't pay..." Ryan's jaw tightened. "They called every day, sometimes every hour. They showed up at her hospital room. They told her that we'd lose everything. Our house, our savings, our dignity. They stressed her into her grave. Marianne's eyes were wet. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. Help me destroy them. She met his gaze. In that moment, an alliance was formed. Sophie wanted to come tonight, Marianne said. I told her it was too dangerous. But she wanted me to give you this. She handed him a small slip of paper. A phone number. She's been keeping records too. Every time Preston came into that diner. Every threat. Every accident that wasn't really an accident. Marianne's voice hardened. He's been targeting her for months. Showing up at her workplace. Following her home. Making sure she knows she can't escape. Why her? Because she filed a complaint last year, after he grabbed her in the parking lot. Nothing came of it, of course, but Preston doesn't forget. He's been punishing her ever since. Ryan pocketed the phone number. What about her family? It's just me and her mother is sick. Diabetes. She needs medication they can barely afford. Marianne paused. They also have a loan, with Hargrove Financial. If they miss one more payment, they lose their house. Of course they did. It was the same pattern, the same trap. Squeeze the vulnerable until they broke, then take everything they had. I have contacts, Ryan said. Federal. People who've been building a case against Hargrove for years. But they need more evidence. The kind that can't be explained away or buried. What kind of evidence? Testimony from victims willing to go on record. Financial documents that trace directly to Preston Sr. And ideally, something that shows the corruption goes beyond money. Ryan looked at the envelope in his hands. Something like this, but bigger. There might be something. Marianne hesitated. Sophie told me once that Preston brags about his father's connections. Politicians, businessmen, even some federal officials. He keeps files on all of them. Insurance, he calls it. Where? His father's office, in the Hargrove building downtown. She shook her head. But getting in there would be impossible. Security cameras, guards, biometric locks, the place is a fortress. Ryan smiled slightly. I've been in worse fortresses. You can't be serious. I'm always serious. Before Marianne could respond, headlights swept across the parking lot. A sheriff's cruiser pulled in, moving slowly, searchlight probing the shadows. Get down, Ryan hissed. They ducked behind a dumpster as the cruiser crept past. Through the gaps in the metal, Ryan saw Tucker himself behind the wheel, scanning the area with predator eyes. The cruiser paused near Ryan's truck. Tucker stared at it for a long moment. Then he picked up his radio. I found his vehicle, library parking lot. Send backup. Ryan's jaw tightened. You have to go, Marianne whispered. Now. What about you? I'll walk home. They're not looking for me. She gripped his arm. Please, take the evidence. Use it. End this. Ryan hesitated for only a second. Then he moved. He circled wide, using the building as cover, approaching his truck from the opposite side. Ghost was already alert, watching through the window, waiting. Ryan reached the driver's door just as another cruiser appeared at the lot's entrance. He had maybe 30 seconds. He jumped in, started the engine, and floored it. The truck roared backward, tires screaming on asphalt. He spun the wheel, shifted gears, and shot forward, blowing past the second cruiser before the deputy could react. In the rearview mirror, he saw Tucker scrambling out of his car. Saw the rage on the sheriff's face. All units, pursuit. Black pickup, heading north on Harbor Road. Do not lose him. Ryan pushed the truck harder. Ghost braced in the passenger seat, calm despite the chaos. They'd been in worse situations together. The highway stretched ahead, dark and empty. Ryan knew these roads. He'd been studying them for weeks, mapping every turn, every shortcut, every place to disappear. 2 miles north, he saw what he was looking for. A dirt road that led into the marsh, invisible unless you knew it existed. He killed his headlights and turned. The truck bounced along the rough track, branches scraping the sides, darkness swallowing them whole. Behind him, the sirens wailed past on the highway, still searching, still hunting. Ryan stopped the truck and sat in the silence. His heart was steady. His breathing was controlled. 14 years of combat had taught him how to stay calm when everything fell apart. Ghost whined softly. "I know, boy." Ryan reached over and scratched behind the dog's ears. "We're okay. For now." His phone buzzed. Another text, this time from the number Marianne had given him. "I saw what happened. I'm scared, but I'm not running anymore. Whatever you're planning, I want to help. Sophie." Ryan stared at the message. In the darkness, surrounded by enemies, hunted by a corrupt sheriff in service to a criminal empire, he should have felt trapped. Instead, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Purpose. Maria had always said he needed a mission, something bigger than himself, something worth fighting for. He'd thought that mission died with her. He was wrong. Ryan typed his response. "Stay safe. Don't contact me again until I reach out. This is going to get dangerous before it gets better." Sophie's reply came immediately. "I've been in danger for 2 years. At least now I'm not alone." Ryan put the phone away and started the truck. The marsh road eventually connected to another highway, one that would take him to the safe house he'd established on the edge of town. A place no one knew about. A place where he could plan his next move. Because Preston Hargrove had just made this personal, and Ryan Mitchell had never lost a fight that mattered. Ghost settled into the seat, finally relaxing, trusting his handler to navigate them to safety. "We're just getting started, boy," Ryan murmured. The truck rumbled through the darkness, and somewhere behind them, the Hargrove Empire was about to learn what happened when you crossed a man with nothing left to lose. The safe house was nothing more than an abandoned fishing shack 3 miles from town. Ryan had rented it under a false name 2 weeks ago, paying cash to a landlord who asked no questions. The walls were thin, the roof leaked, and the only furniture was a cot and a folding table. But it had electricity, running water, and most importantly, no connection to Ryan Mitchell. Ghost padded through the door first, sniffing corners, checking for threats. Old habits from their deployment days. When he found nothing, he circled twice and settled near the door, eyes still open, still watching. Ryan spread Marianne's documents across the table. 6 victims, 6 women Preston Hargrove III had assaulted over 3 years. Medical records showing broken bones, concussions, facial lacerations. Police reports filed and dismissed. Settlement agreements with 6-figure payouts and ironclad confidentiality clauses. "Bastard," Ryan muttered. But it wasn't enough. Not for federal charges. Not for the kind of justice that would actually stick. He needed more. His phone buzzed. Unknown number, again. "You made quite an impression today." The voice was male, older, cultured. "Mr. Mitchell, or should I say, Petty Officer Mitchell. Former SEAL Team 5. 14 years of distinguished service. Honorable discharge 8 months ago, following the death of your wife." Ryan's blood went cold. "Who is this?" "Someone who's been watching you for 3 weeks. Someone who knows exactly why you came to this town." A soft laugh. "Did you really think you could investigate my family without me noticing?" Preston Hargrove II. Ryan gripped the phone tighter. "What do you want?" "The same thing all reasonable men want. To avoid unnecessary conflict." Hargrove's voice was smooth, reasonable. The voice of a man who had talked his way out of 1,000 corners. "You have grievances. I understand that. Your wife's illness, the financial pressures, the unfortunate circumstances of her final months. These things create anger, resentment, the need to blame someone. My wife died because your company harassed her into her grave. Your wife died because she had cancer, Mr. Mitchell. Everything else is interpretation. A pause. But I'm not calling to argue. I'm calling to offer you a way out. I'm listening. Leave town tonight. Take your evidence, your dog, your righteous anger, and go. In return, I'll personally ensure that every debt associated with your wife's treatment is forgiven, your credit restored, a fresh start, anywhere you choose. Ryan laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. You think I came here for money? I think you came here for revenge, and I'm offering you something better. Hargrove's voice hardened slightly. But I need you to understand something, Mr. Mitchell. I'm only making this offer once. If you refuse, if you continue this crusade, I will destroy you. Not metaphorically, literally. I will take everything you have left and grind it into dust. You already took everything I had. Silence on the line. My wife's name was Maria. She was a nurse. She spent 30 years taking care of people who couldn't take care of themselves. And when she got sick, when she needed help, your company sent collectors to her hospital room. They called her every day. They told her she was worthless, that she'd ruined our lives, that she might as well just give up. Ryan's voice didn't waver. She died believing she was a burden. She died thinking she'd failed me. And that's on you. I'm sorry for your loss. Hargrove didn't sound sorry. But business is business. If your wife couldn't handle the terms of her agreement, your son beat a young woman today, slammed her face into a table in front of a dozen witnesses, and your sheriff covered it up. Ryan cut him off. That's not business. That's a pattern. And patterns are what federal prosecutors love. Another pause. Longer this time. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's mine to make. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Hargrove's voice went flat. Goodbye, Mr. Mitchell. I hope your principles keep you warm when you're sleeping in a cell. The line went dead. Ryan stood motionless for a long moment. Then he set the phone down and looked at Ghost. He's scared. Ghost's ears perked up. He called me himself. Not a lawyer. Not an intermediary. He called me personally at 11 o'clock at night to offer a bribe. Ryan smiled grimly. That means I'm closer than I thought. He turned back to the documents. Somewhere in these pages was the key, the connection that would bring the whole empire down. He just had to find it. 3 hours later, his phone buzzed again. This time he recognized the number. Sophie. I shouldn't be calling, she said immediately, but something happened. What? They came to my house, Sheriff Tucker and 2 deputies. They said they were investigating a disturbance at the diner. Her voice shook. They searched everything. My room, my mother's room, even my daughter's closet. They took my laptop and my phone. I'm using my neighbor's right now. Did they find anything? The documents I was keeping? The records of Preston's harassment? Sophie laughed bitterly. I moved them last week. After the last time he came into the diner and threatened me, I knew something bad was coming. Where are they now? With Aunt Marianne. She has copies of everything. A pause. But that's not why I'm calling. What is it? When they searched my mother's room, Tucker found her medication. He took it. Said it was evidence of something. He didn't even specify what. My mother needs that medication, Ryan. She's diabetic. Without her insulin... I understand. Ryan's jaw tightened. I'll handle it. How? I don't know yet, but I will. He paused. Sophie, listen to me. Don't go to work tomorrow. Stay home. Stay with your family. I can't afford to miss work. We're already behind on... I'll cover it. Silence. You don't even know me. I know you stood up when no one else would. I know you've been keeping records when everyone told you to stay quiet. And I know that Preston Hargrove targeted you because you're brave. Ryan's voice softened. That's enough. Sophie didn't respond for a long moment. When she did, her voice was thick with emotion. Why are you doing this? Really? Ryan thought about Maria, about the last time he'd held her hand, listening to her breathe, waiting for the end. About the rage that had consumed him in the months after, and the cold determination that had replaced it. Because someone should have helped my wife, and no one did. He closed his eyes. I'm not going to make that mistake. Your wife? It's a long story. I'll tell you sometime, if we survive this. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. Ryan stood up. Decision made. I'm going to get your mother's medication. Stay where you are. Don't answer the door for anyone you don't know. Ryan, I'll call when it's done. He hung up before she could argue. Ghost rose immediately, sensing the shift in his handler's energy. Ryan grabbed his jacket and the keys to the truck. Come on, boy, we've got work to do. The pharmacy was closed when Ryan arrived, but he knew the pharmacist lived in the apartment above, a Vietnam veteran named Earl Dawkins, 73 years old, who had served 2 tours as a medic before coming home to a country that didn't want to remember what he'd done. Ryan had met him during his first week in town, recognizing the look in Earl's eyes, the look of a man who had seen things that never fully let go. He knocked on the side door. It took 3 minutes for Earl to answer, wearing a bathrobe and holding a baseball bat. Who's there? Ryan Mitchell. We met at the VFW last week. The door cracked open. Earl's eyes narrowed, then widened with recognition. The SEAL? What the hell are you doing here at midnight? I need insulin for a diabetic patient who had her medication confiscated by Sheriff Tucker. Earl's expression darkened. Tucker? That corrupt son of a... He trailed off, shaking his head. He's been pulling this garbage for years, using his badge to settle personal scores. Can you help? Earl studied him for a long moment. Then he stepped back and opened the door wider. Come in. Tell me what you need. 20 minutes later, Ryan left with a bag containing insulin, syringes, and enough supplies to last a month. Earl had refused payment. Consider it professional courtesy, the old man said. One veteran to another, and one human being to another. He gripped Ryan's arm. You're going after them, aren't you? The Hargroves? Yes. Good. Earl's eyes burned with old anger. My nephew lost his house to those vultures 3 years ago. His wife left him. He started drinking. Last I heard, he was living in his car somewhere in Florida. He spat on the ground. They've been bleeding this town dry for decades. It's about time someone fought back. I'm going to need more than medicine to do that. What else do you need? Ryan hesitated. This was the part where things got complicated. Information about the Hargrove building, security systems, access points, anything you might know. Earl's eyebrows rose. You're planning something big. I'm planning something necessary. The old man was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed. Hell, why not? I'm 73 years old. What are they going to do? Kill me? He gestured for Ryan to follow him. Come on, I've got something to show you. Earl led him to a back room filled with filing cabinets and old computer equipment. He pulled out a thick folder and handed it to Ryan. My nephew worked security at the Hargrove building for 6 years, before they fired him for asking too many questions. Earl tapped the folder. He kept copies of everything. Floor plans, security protocols, employee schedules. He was building a case, trying to prove they were laundering money. But then the drinking got bad, and he lost focus. Ryan opened the folder. His heart rate increased as he scanned the contents. This was exactly what he needed. "Earl, this is—" "It's yours. Use it." The old man's voice hardened. "Just promise me one thing." "Name it." "When you bring them down, when you finally make them pay for everything they've done, make sure the whole world sees it. I want their name to become a curse word in this town." Ryan met his eyes. "I promise." He drove to Sophie's house just as dawn broke. The medication delivery took less than 5 minutes, but Sophie grabbed his arm before he could leave. "Wait, please. I can't stay. It's not safe for you if I'm here." "I don't care about safe." Her eyes were red from crying, but her jaw was set. "I've been safe for 2 years, keeping my head down, not making trouble. And look where it got me." She gestured at her face, where the bruise from yesterday's assault was already darkening. "I'm done being safe." "Sophie, let me help." She stepped closer. "I know things about Preston that aren't in any documents. Things he's said when he thought I wasn't listening. Things about his father's business, about the sheriff, about why they've been buying up property along the coast." Ryan paused. "What kind of things?" "There's a development project. Offshore drilling rights worth billions. The Hargroves have been buying up coastal property for years, forcing owners to sell, using their loans as leverage. Anyone who refuses gets the same treatment I got." Sophie's voice dropped. "But there's one piece of land they can't get. The old Mitchell property on the point." Ryan froze. "Mitchell?" "It belonged to a Navy family, apparently. They've owned it for generations. The current owner died about 6 months ago, and her husband—" Sophie stopped. "Oh, God. That was Maria's family land." Ryan's voice came out rough. "Her grandfather built a house there in the 50s. She grew up spending summers on that property. You're the heir." "I didn't know." He hadn't known. Maria had mentioned the land once or twice, but he'd never paid attention. After she died, he'd been too lost in grief to think about anything else. "I never filed the paperwork. I assumed it would just—" "That's why they targeted your wife." Sophie's eyes widened with realization. "That's why they were so aggressive with the loans. They weren't just collecting debt. They were trying to force you to sell." Everything clicked into place. The harassment, the calls, the collectors who showed up at Maria's hospital room with papers to sign. They hadn't been trying to get paid. They'd been trying to pressure him, into giving up the one piece of land that stood between the Hargroves and billions of dollars. And when Maria died, when Ryan disappeared into his grief instead of claiming the property, they'd lost track of him until he showed up in their town, asking questions, making trouble. "That's why Hargrove called me last night." Ryan's hands clenched into fists. "He's not worried about the assault charges. He's worried about the land." "What are you going to do?" Ryan thought about the folder in his truck, the security plans, the access points, the proof that somewhere in the Hargrove building was evidence of a conspiracy that stretched far beyond one family's greed. "I'm going to take everything they have." The phone rang. Earl's number. "Ryan, you need to get somewhere with a TV. Now." "Why?" "Just do it." Ryan and Sophie rushed inside. Her mother was already watching the morning news, the volume turned up. Responding to reports of a fire at a residence on Maple Street. The home, belonging to Marianne Cole, was fully engulfed when firefighters arrived. Ms. Cole was transported to the hospital with severe burns and smoke inhalation. Her condition is listed as critical. Sophie screamed, "No, no, no, no!" She collapsed against Ryan, sobbing. He caught her, held her, but his eyes stayed on the screen. Authorities are investigating the cause of the fire. Sheriff Tucker stated that initial evidence suggests an electrical malfunction, though the investigation is ongoing. Electrical malfunction. In a house that had just been searched by Tucker's deputies. In the home of the woman who held copies of evidence against the Hargrove family. Ryan's blood turned to ice. Sophie, he gripped her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. The documents, are they still at Mary Ann's house? What? The documents, the evidence, were they in the house? Sophie's face went pale. I don't know. She was supposed to move them, but... Ryan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Did you enjoy the fireworks? Consider this a preview. Next time, it's the girl, and the mother, and the dog. Leave now, Mr. Mitchell. You have 24 hours. He showed it to Sophie. She stopped crying. Something harder replaced the tears. They tried to kill my aunt. Yes. They burned her house to destroy evidence. Probably. And they're threatening my family. Yes. Sophie straightened, wiped her eyes, set her jaw. Then we don't have time to be scared. She met his gaze. What's the plan? Ryan looked at her, saw the determination, saw the anger, saw the same fire that had driven him to come to this town in the first place. The plan is to hit them before they can hit us again. How? I know someone who can help. Federal contact. She's been building a case against the Hargroves for years, but she needs evidence from inside. Ryan pulled out his phone. If we can get into the Hargrove building, access their files, find the proof. You want to break into the most secure building in the county? I want to end this tonight. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. What do you need me to do? The hospital was chaos. Ryan and Sophie arrived to find Mary Ann in the ICU, unconscious, wrapped in bandages, machines beeping around her. The doctors said she had third-degree burns over 40% of her body. She might survive. She might not. Sophie held her aunt's hand and wept. Ryan stood by the door, watching for threats. A nurse approached. Are you family? Yes, Sophie said. There was something clutched in her hand when they brought her in. The paramedics almost missed it. The nurse held out a small object wrapped in singed cloth. They said she wouldn't let go, even unconscious. They thought it might be important. Sophie unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a flash drive. She saved them, Sophie whispered. She saved the files. Ryan took the drive, turning it over in his hands. It was scorched, but intact. If the data was still readable. We need to go. He touched Sophie's shoulder. Now. I can't leave her. If we stay, they'll find us. And then they'll finish what they started. His voice was gentle, but firm. The best thing you can do for your aunt is help me end this. Sophie looked at Mary Ann one last time, bent down and kissed her forehead. I'll come back. I promise. They left through a service entrance, avoiding the main lobby where Ryan had spotted one of Tucker's deputies stationed near the front desk. In the parking lot, Ryan's phone buzzed again. A text from Agent Diana Cross, FBI. Got your message. I'm en route. Meet me at coordinates in 2 hours. Come alone. He typed back. Can't come alone. Bringing a witness. She has evidence. The response was immediate. Fine. But if this is a waste of my time, Mitchell, I will personally end your career. He smiled grimly. His career had ended the day Maria died. Everything since then had been borrowed time. Where are we going? Sophie asked. To meet someone who can help. Ryan started the truck. Ghost jumped into the back seat. Someone who's been waiting for this moment for a very long time. They drove into the rising sun. Behind them, the Hargrove Empire was waking up. But they didn't know that the man they'd tried to destroy was about to become their worst nightmare. And the countdown to justice had finally begun. The federal helicopters arrived at dawn. Ryan stood on the beach near the old Mitchell property, watching 3 Black Hawks descend from the sky. Ghost pressed against his leg, calm but alert. Sophie stood beside them, her aunt's flash drive clutched in her hand like a talisman. Agent Diana Cross jumped out before the rotor stopped spinning. She was tall, lean, mid-40s, with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen everything, and judged most of it harshly. Behind her came a team of agents in tactical gear, moving with coordinated precision. "Mitchell," Cross stopped in front of him. "I've been building this case for 4 years. Watched 3 witnesses disappear, 2 judges get bought off, and 1 U.S. attorney suddenly decide to retire." Her eyes bore into his. "Tell me you have something real this time." Ryan handed her the hard drives from the Hargrove building. Financial records going back 15 years. Shell companies traced to their source. Payments to Sheriff Tucker, Judge Morrison, and at least 6 state legislators. He paused. And video footage of Preston Hargrove III assaulting 7 different women, including one that happened less than 48 hours ago. Cross took the drives. Her expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "Where did you get these?" "Does it matter?" "It matters for prosecution." "Then say I found them in a dumpster." Ryan's voice was flat. "Or say an anonymous source provided them. Or say whatever you need to say to make this stick. I don't care about credit. I care about results." Cross studied him for a long moment. Then she turned to her team. "Martinez, start processing these drives. I want preliminary analysis in 2 hours." She looked back at Ryan. "If this is what you say it is, we move today. No warning, no leaks, no time for anyone to destroy evidence or disappear. What do you need from me?" "Stay out of the way," Cross's voice softened slightly. "You've done enough, Mitchell. Let us handle the rest." "My wife, I know about your wife." She held up her hand. "I've known about Maria Mitchell for 18 months. She was going to be one of our star witnesses before she died. Her testimony about the harassment, the pressure tactics, the illegal interest rates, it would have been devastating for the Hargroves." Cross paused. "I'm sorry we couldn't save her." Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. "So am I. But we can still get justice for her, and for everyone else they've hurt." Cross gestured toward the helicopters. "We're hitting 3 locations simultaneously. The Hargrove building, Sheriff Tucker's office, and Preston Sr.'s residence. By noon today, everyone involved in this conspiracy will be in federal custody." "What about Preston Jr.? "He's our first priority." Cross's expression hardened. "Assault charges, witness intimidation, conspiracy. He's looking at 30 years minimum." "That's not enough." "It's what we can prove." She met his eyes. "Sometimes justice isn't perfect, Mitchell. Sometimes it's just better than nothing." Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to demand more, but he knew she was right. "Fine. Do what you have to do." Cross nodded and turned to leave. Then she stopped. "Mitchell, one more thing." "What?" "That property." She pointed toward the old house on the bluff. "Maria's family land. The Hargroves have been trying to acquire it for years. It's the linchpin of their entire development scheme." "I know. As of this morning, it's officially been transferred into your name. The paperwork was filed 3 hours ago." Cross almost smiled. "Which means whatever happens next, they can never have it. Even if some miracle gets them acquitted, that land will never be theirs." Ryan looked up at the old house. He'd never been inside. Maria had described it so many times. The porch where her grandmother used to sit. The kitchen where her mother learned to cook. The bedroom where she'd spent summers as a child listening to the waves. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank your wife." Cross walked toward the helicopters. "She's the one who started all this. You just finished it. The raids began at exactly 0800 hours. Ryan watched from a distance as federal agents stormed the Hargrove building. He saw employees streaming out, hands raised, faces confused. He saw boxes of documents being carried out by the truckload. He saw the carefully constructed facade of legitimate business crumbling in real time. Sophie sat beside him in the truck, watching the same scene. Is this really happening? It's happening. I keep waiting to wake up. Her voice was barely a whisper. I've dreamed about this for 2 years. About someone finally stopping them. About Preston finally facing consequences. She wiped her eyes. I never thought it would actually come true. It almost didn't. What do you mean? Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Last night, when we were inside the building, I had Preston alone. He was on the floor, bleeding, begging for mercy. And for about 3 seconds, I thought about ending it myself. Permanently. Sophie stared at him. Why didn't you? Because that's what he would have done. That's what his father would have done. That's what everyone in their world does. Eliminate problems with violence and money and power. Ryan shook his head. I didn't come here to become them. I came here to prove there's another way. Even after what they did to Maria? Especially after what they did to Maria. Ryan's voice cracked slightly. She believed in the system. She believed that if you did the right thing, if you worked hard and treated people fairly, eventually justice would find you. He paused. I owe it to her to prove she was right. Sophie reached over and took his hand. She would be proud of you. Ryan couldn't speak. He just squeezed her hand and kept watching the destruction of an empire. The first arrest came at 0847. Sheriff Boyd Tucker was pulled from his office in handcuffs, still wearing his uniform, still carrying his badge. The look on his face was pure disbelief. The expression of a man who had never imagined consequences applying to him. Ryan felt nothing. Tucker had protected the Hargroves for 15 years. He'd buried complaints, intimidated witnesses, destroyed evidence. He'd looked the other way while women were beaten and families were destroyed. And he'd done it all for money. Now he would spend the rest of his life in a cell. That seemed about right. Preston Hargrove II was arrested at 0912. He came out of his mansion with lawyers already flanking him, shouting about violations of due process and prosecutorial overreach. But the handcuffs went on anyway. The agents didn't care about his money, or his connections, or his carefully cultivated image of respectability. They cared about the evidence, and the evidence was overwhelming. Ryan watched as they loaded Hargrove into a federal vehicle. For just a moment, the old man's eyes found his through the crowd. There was no fear in that gaze, no remorse, just cold, calculating hatred. Ryan held his stare until the vehicle pulled away. That's him? Sophie asked. The father? That's him. He looks ordinary. Most monsters do. The call came at 0931. Cross's voice was tight with controlled urgency. Mitchell, we have a problem. What? Preston Jr. He wasn't at any of our target locations. His phone's been turned off for 6 hours, and his car was found abandoned near the marina. Ryan's blood went cold. He ran. We're searching, but he has money, contacts, and a head start. If he gets out of the country, he won't. How do you know? Ryan thought about everything he'd learned in the past 48 hours. About Preston's arrogance, his need for control, his pathological inability to accept defeat. Because he's not running away. He's planning something. Like what? I don't know yet. But he's not the type to just disappear. He's going to want revenge. On who? Ryan looked at Sophie. At the diner, in the distance, had all the people Preston had hurt over the years. Everyone. They found Sophie's mother first. She was missing from the house. No signs of struggle, no note, just an empty bedroom and a daughter's screaming panic. "Mom! Mom, where are you?" Ryan searched the property while Sophie fell apart. Ghost tracked a scent from the bedroom to the back door, then lost it near the street. Someone had picked her up. Someone with a car. "Sophie," Ryan grabbed her shoulders. "Listen to me. I need you to focus." "They took her! They took my mother!" "I know, and we're going to get her back, but I need you to think. Where would Preston go? Where would he feel safe?" "I don't know. I don't know anything." "Yes, you do. You've been watching him for 2 years. You know his patterns, his habits, his weaknesses." Ryan's voice was calm but urgent. "Think, Sophie. Where does he go when he's cornered?" She forced herself to breathe, to think. "The yacht. His father's yacht. It's docked at the private marina on the north end of town. He goes there when he wants to get away from everything." "That's where we'll find him." "How do you know?" "Because it's the only place left where he still has power." Ryan pulled out his phone and dialed Cross. And men like Preston can't survive without power. The marina was quiet when they arrived. Too quiet. Ryan approached alone, leaving Sophie and Ghost at a safe distance. His training kicked in automatically, assessing angles, identifying cover, mapping potential threats. The yacht was there, lights on, movement visible through the windows. He circled closer, staying low, using the other boats as concealment. When he reached the gangway, he could hear voices. "Can't believe you brought her here." A woman's voice, angry, scared. "Shut up, Amber, I'm thinking." Preston, "Thinking? We need to run. The feds are everywhere. Your father's in custody, and you're sitting here playing games with some old lady." "She's leverage, don't you understand? As long as we have her, they can't touch us." Ryan's jaw tightened. Sophie's mother was on that boat. Alive, at least. But for how long? He pulled out his phone and texted Cross the location. Then he started moving. The gangway was exposed. No way to approach without being seen. He'd have to be fast. He was halfway up when a voice stopped him. "That's far enough, soldier boy." Ryan turned. Preston stood on the deck, holding a gun. Not pointed at Ryan. Pointed at someone behind him. An elderly woman with gray hair and terrified eyes. Sophie's mother. "Drop whatever weapons you have. Slowly." Ryan raised his hands. "Easy. Just stay calm." "Calm? Calm?" Preston laughed, but there was hysteria in it. "My father is in federal custody. My accounts are frozen. My entire life is falling apart because of you. Your life was falling apart long before I showed up. You just didn't notice." "Shut up!" Preston pressed the gun harder against the old woman's head. She whimpered. "You ruined everything. You and that stupid waitress and everyone else who couldn't just mind their own business." "Sophie didn't ruin anything. Neither did I. You did this to yourself, Preston. Every woman you hurt, every family you destroyed, every crime you committed. That's all you." "I didn't commit crimes. I did what I had to do." "You beat a young woman in a diner. You slammed her face into a table, in front of witnesses." Ryan's voice was steady. "That's not survival. That's sickness." Preston's hand trembled. The gun wavered. "You don't understand. You can't understand. Growing up with my father, the expectations, the pressure. Save it for your therapist or your cellmate." Ryan took a step forward. "Let her go, Preston. It's over." "It's not over until I say it's over." "Look around you. Your girlfriend is crying on the deck. Your father is in handcuffs. Federal agents are 5 minutes away." Ryan gestured at the marina. You've got nowhere to go and nothing to bargain with. The only question left is how you want this to end. Maybe I want it to end with both of us dead. You don't mean that. Don't I? Preston's eyes were wild now. My whole life, I've been told I'm special, that I'm better than everyone else, that the rules don't apply to me. And you know what? I believed it. I really believed it. I know. But now I look at myself and I see... His voice broke. I see nothing. I'm nothing without my father's money. I'm nothing without his name. I'm just a scared little boy who never grew up. For just a moment, Ryan felt something unexpected. Pity. Not for what Preston had done. That was unforgivable. But for the broken child underneath. For the person he might have been if someone had loved him differently. Preston. Ryan's voice softened. Put down the gun. Get help. It's not too late to choose something better. You're lying. I'm not. I've seen men worse than you come back from darker places. It happens. But it only happens if you let it. Preston stared at him. The gun lowered slightly. You really believe that? I do. Silence stretched between them. The waves lapped against the hull. The wind whispered through the rigging. Then Ghost barked. It came from behind, a sharp warning that made Ryan spin instinctively. And in that moment, Preston made his choice. He shoved Sophie's mother toward Ryan and ran. Ryan caught the old woman before she hit the deck. Are you okay? Are you hurt? I'm fine. She clutched his arm. Go! Stop him! Ryan was already moving. Preston had jumped from the yacht to the dock and was running toward a speedboat at the end of the pier. Ryan sprinted after him, closing the distance with every stride. But Preston reached the boat first. The engine roared to life. The lines were cut. The boat lurched away from the dock just as Ryan reached the edge. For 1 second, he considered jumping. Then the federal helicopters appeared. 3 of them, rising from behind the marina buildings, searchlights blazing, loudspeakers booming. Federal agents, cut your engine and raise your hands. This is your only warning. Preston's boat kept moving. Stop the vessel now or we will open fire. For a moment, Ryan thought Preston would actually try to run, would rather die than face consequences. But then the boat slowed, the engine cut, and Preston Hargrove III raised his hands. The arrest took less than 3 minutes. Agents swarmed the speedboat from a Coast Guard cutter. Preston was pulled out, handcuffed, and loaded onto a federal helicopter without ceremony. Ryan watched from the dock. It was over. After everything, the planning, the fighting, the fear, it was finally over. Sophie appeared beside him, her mother supported between her and a federal agent. Is she okay? Scared, but unharmed. Sophie looked at Ryan with tears in her eyes. Thank you. Thank you for everything. I didn't do it for thanks. I know. That's why it means so much. Agent Cross approached, phone in hand. Mitchell, it's done. All 3 Hargroves in custody. Tucker and 12 deputies. 2 judges and a state senator. She almost smiled. This is the biggest corruption case this state has seen in 50 years. Good. Good? That's all you have to say? Ryan looked at the water, at the boats, at the town that had suffered so long under the Hargrove shadow. It's not about what I say. It's about what happens next. He met Cross's eyes. Make sure it sticks. Make sure they can't buy their way out. Make sure justice actually means something. That's the plan. Then I'm satisfied. Cross nodded. Then she held out her hand. It's been an honor, Mitchell. Your wife chose well. Ryan shook her hand. She always did. The sun was setting by the time Ryan returned to the Mitchell property. He walked up to the old house on the bluff, Ghost padding beside him. The door was unlocked. It had always been unlocked, according to Maria. Her grandmother never believed in locks. Inside, dust covered everything. Sheets draped the furniture. Pictures hung on the walls, faded by decades of sunlight. Ryan moved through the room slowly, absorbing details. The kitchen where Maria's mother had taught her to make pancakes. The living room where her grandfather had read her stories. The porch where she had dreamed of someday bringing her own children. She never got to do any of that. Ryan found a photograph on the mantel. Maria, as a young girl, maybe 8 or 9, standing on the porch with her grandmother. Both of them were smiling. Both of them looked happy in a way that Maria had never quite recaptured in adulthood. He picked up the frame and held it. "I did it," he whispered. "I know it doesn't bring you back. I know nothing can fix what happened or make it okay. But I did what you would have wanted. I helped people who couldn't help themselves. I stood up when everyone else sat down." Ghost whined softly and pressed against his leg. "I'm going to stay here for a while, in your grandmother's house. Take care of the place. Maybe fix it up." Ryan touched the glass over Maria's face. "And every morning, I'm going to walk down to the beach and watch the sunrise, just like you always wanted to do." He set the photograph back on the mantel. "I love you, Maria. I always will. And wherever you are, I hope you're finally at peace." The last light faded outside. Ryan sat down on the dusty couch, Ghost curling up at his feet. For the first time in 6 months, he didn't feel alone. For the first time in 6 months, he felt like maybe, just maybe, the worst was behind him. And somewhere in the distance, the waves kept rolling, steady and eternal, carrying away the last echoes of everything that had been lost. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow would be the first day of whatever came next. But tonight, Ryan Mitchell sat in his wife's family home and let himself grieve properly for the first time since she died. And in that grief, somehow, he found the beginning of healing. 3 months changed everything. Ryan woke before dawn, as he always did, and walked down to the beach with Ghost padding silently beside him. The waves rolled in steady and eternal, washing away footprints, carrying secrets to the sea. He had made this walk every morning since the arrests. Sometimes Sophie joined him. Sometimes her daughter Lily came too, running ahead to chase sandpipers while Ghost bounded after her. But most mornings, it was just Ryan and his dog, watching the sun rise over water that had witnessed generations of Mitchell family history. Today felt different. Today was the day the verdicts would be announced. His phone buzzed. Agent Cross. "It's done. All 3 Hargroves convicted on all counts. Preston Sr. got 25 years. Preston Jr. got 15. The mother pleaded guilty to conspiracy and got 5. Cross paused. Tucker got 12 years. The judges and legislators are still being processed, but the dominoes are falling. Ryan closed his eyes. "Mitchell, you there?" "I'm here." "How do you feel?" How did he feel? He'd spent 6 months hunting these people. He'd risked everything to bring them down. And now it was over. Really, truly over. "I feel like Maria would be proud." "She would be." Cross's voice softened. "Listen, I know you turned down the consulting position, but the offer still stands. We could use someone like you." "I appreciate it, but I found something better." "The dog program?" "Among other things." Cross laughed. "Fair enough. Take care of yourself, Mitchell, and if you ever change your mind, I know where to find you." He hung up and looked at Ghost. "It's over, boy. They got what they deserved." Ghost's tail wagged once. Understanding. always understanding. They walked back up the bluff together, toward the house that Maria had loved, toward the life Ryan was slowly learning to build. The diner had a new name now. Sophie had bought it 2 months ago, using the settlement money from her civil suit against the Hargroves. The old sign that said, Bayview Diner, had been replaced with something simpler. Second chances. Ryan pushed through the door at exactly 7 a.m., Ghost at his heels. The morning rush was just starting. Fishermen grabbing coffee before heading out. Families stopping for breakfast. Tourists passing through on their way to somewhere else. But the atmosphere was different now. Lighter. The fear that had hung over this place for years had finally lifted. "There he is!" Earl Dawkins waved from his usual booth. "The man of the hour!" Ryan slid in across from him. "I'm not the man of anything. Don't be modest. Word just came through about the verdicts. 25 years for the old man. That's practically a life sentence at his age." Earl grinned. "I called my nephew in Florida. First time he's sounded hopeful in years." "How's he doing?" "Better. He's in a program now, getting clean. Says he might even come back here someday, start over." Earl's eyes grew wet. 3 months ago, I thought this town was dying. Now look at it." Ryan looked. The diner was full, not just with locals, but with people he'd never seen before. Journalists, investigators, curious visitors who had heard about the small coastal town that had taken down a criminal empire. Some of them were writing books. Some were making documentaries. All of them wanted to understand how it happened. "They keep asking me for interviews," Earl continued. "Want to know what it was like living under the Hargrove thumb. What it felt like when everything changed." "What do you tell them?" "I tell them the truth, that most of us were too scared to fight. That we knew things were wrong but convinced ourselves it wasn't our problem. That it took a stranger, a man with nothing left to lose, to show us what courage looked like." "That's not entirely accurate." "It's accurate enough." Earl leaned forward. "You didn't just take down the Hargroves, Ryan. You reminded us who we could be. That's worth more than any conviction." Sophie appeared with coffee, setting a cup in front of each of them. "You heard the news?" she asked Ryan. "I heard." "How do you feel?" Everyone kept asking him that. How did he feel? What did justice taste like? Was the pain finally over? Ryan took a sip of coffee before answering. "I feel like it's time to focus on something else." "Like what?" He looked at her. Really looked. 3 months had changed Sophie, too. The fear was gone from her eyes. Her shoulders no longer hunched forward protectively. She smiled now, actually smiled, and meant it. "Like the future." Sophie's cheeks flushed slightly. "That's cryptic." "I'm a cryptic kind of guy." Earl laughed and stood up. "I'll leave you two alone. Got to spread the good news around town." He clapped Ryan on the shoulder. "Thank you, son, for everything." After he left, Sophie slid into the booth across from Ryan. "Marianne called this morning." "How is she?" "Stronger every day. The doctors say she'll be ready for discharge next week." Sophie's voice caught. "She asked about you, wanted to know if you were staying." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I didn't know, that you hadn't said anything definite." She met his eyes. "Are you staying, Ryan?" He'd thought about this question every staying meant trusting that the world wouldn't take everything from him twice. "My wife always wanted to live by the ocean," he said slowly. "She talked about it constantly. A little house near the water where we could grow old together, listen to the waves at night, maybe have kids running around." He paused. "She never got that dream, but I could still honor it." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this feels like home. For the first time since Maria died, somewhere actually feels like home." Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm staying, Sophie, if you'll have me." Her eyes filled with tears. You idiot. Of course I'll have you. Ghost barked once from under the table. Approval, Ryan decided, and the tension broke into laughter. I should get back to work, Sophie said, wiping her eyes. But tonight, dinner, at your place. Our place. She froze. What? The Mitchell house, Maria's family property. It's too big for just me and Ghost. Ryan squeezed her hand. Move in, you and Lily. We'll figure out the rest as we go. Ryan, that's... Too fast? Probably. Crazy? Definitely. He smiled. But I've spent 6 months learning that life is short and precious and completely unpredictable. I don't want to waste another day being careful. Sophie stared at him. Then she laughed. A real laugh, full and bright and free. Okay. Yes. Okay. She stood up, still laughing. But you're explaining this to my mother. Deal. She walked away, still shaking her head, and Ryan watched her go with something warm spreading through his chest. It felt suspiciously like hope. The afternoon brought unexpected visitors. Ryan was working on the porch railing. The old wood had finally given up, when a convoy of cars pulled up the dirt road. Federal plates. Official looking. Ghost's hackles rose. Easy boy. Agent Cross stepped out of the lead vehicle, followed by a man Ryan didn't recognize. Older. Distinguished. The kind of bearing that came from decades in government service. Mitchell. Cross approached with the stranger. This is Deputy Director Harrison, FBI. He wanted to meet you personally. Harrison extended his hand. Mr. Mitchell, I've heard a great deal about you. Should I be worried? On the contrary. Harrison's handshake was firm. You've done something remarkable here. Not just the Hargrove case, though that alone would be impressive, but what you've built in the aftermath. The Veterans Support Program, the community outreach, the way you've helped this town heal. I just did what needed doing. That's exactly what the best people always say. Harrison released his hand. I'm not here to recruit you. Agent Cross already told me you declined. But I wanted to offer something else. What's that? Resources. For your program. Harrison pulled an envelope from his jacket. Federal grant money designated for veteran rehabilitation initiatives. Your dog training operation qualifies, if you're interested. Ryan took the envelope. Inside was a check with more zeros than he'd expected. This is a start. There's more available if the program expands. Harrison's eyes were sharp but kind. What you're doing matters, Mitchell. Helping veterans find purpose, matching them with service animals, giving them a reason to keep going. That's the kind of work that changes lives. It's also the kind of work that saved mine. I know. Harrison glanced at Ghost, who had relaxed slightly, but remained watchful. Your dog. He served in Afghanistan, correct? 3 tours. Retired after his handler was killed. And now he helps you train other dogs to help other veterans. Something like that. Harrison nodded slowly. There's a saying in the Bureau. The best agents are the ones who've been broken and put themselves back together. I think the same is true for all of us. He extended his hand again. Good luck, Mitchell. I have a feeling we'll be hearing more about what you build here. After they left, Ryan stood on the porch holding the check. Ghost pressed against his leg. You hear that, boy? We're official now. Ghost's tail wagged. Come on, let's go tell Sophie. The veteran program had started small. Just 3 dogs and 3 veterans in the beginning. Ryan had converted the old barn on the Mitchell property into a training facility, using techniques he'd learned during his years working with military canine units. Sophie had connected him with rescue organizations that specialized in dogs with potential for service work. But word spread. Within 2 months, they had a waiting list. Veterans from across the state, and then from neighboring states, started reaching out. Some had PTSD. Some had physical disabilities. All of them had been failed by a system that didn't know how to help them adjust to civilian life. Ryan understood their pain. He'd lived it. The day after Harrison's visit, Ryan was working with a new arrival, a Marine named Jackson who'd lost both legs to an IED in Iraq, when the phone rang. "Mitchell, it's Cross. You sitting down?" "I'm in the middle of training." "This can't wait." She paused. "Preston Sr. died in custody last night. Heart attack. His lawyers are claiming prison stress, but the medical examiner says it was a pre-existing condition that went untreated." Ryan processed this slowly. "How do you feel about that?" "I don't know yet." He watched Jackson work with a young German shepherd named Duke, both of them finding their rhythm together. Part of me thinks he got off easy. 25 years of prison stress versus the lifetimes of suffering he caused. And the other part? The other part knows that hatred is a poison. It doesn't matter how he died. What matters is that he can't hurt anyone else. Ryan paused. Maria used to say that forgiveness isn't about letting people off the hook. It's about setting yourself free. Your wife sounds like she was a remarkable woman. She was. Ryan smiled despite himself. She really was. After the call, he returned to Jackson and Duke. "Everything okay?" Jackson asked. "Yeah, just news I needed to hear." Ryan knelt beside the dog. "How's he doing?" "Better than me," Jackson laughed, the first genuine laugh Ryan had heard from him. "He already knows when I'm getting anxious, puts his head on my lap before I even realize what's happening. That's the bond. Once it forms, it's unbreakable." "Is that what you have with Ghost?" Ryan looked at his own dog, lying in the corner, watching everything with calm, amber eyes. "Ghost saved my life. Not just physically, though he's done that too, but emotionally. After Maria died, I was ready to give up. He's the reason I kept going. So there's hope for guys like me." "There's always hope." Ryan stood. "That's the whole point of this place. Second chances. For the dogs, for the veterans, for everyone who walks through that door." Jackson was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I spent 2 years thinking my life was over. That losing my legs meant losing everything that mattered. My wife left. My kids stopped visiting. I was drinking myself to death in a VA hospital when your program found me. And now? Now I wake up in the morning and Duke is there, waiting for me, needing me. And I think maybe that's enough. Maybe being needed is enough to keep going." Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. "It's more than enough. It's everything." Lily found the photograph. She was 6 now, a bundle of energy and curiosity who had adopted Ghost as her personal guardian. The dog tolerated her with infinite patience, letting her climb on his back, pull his ears, dress him in ridiculous costumes. "Ryan? Who's this lady?" He turned from the stove. He was making dinner, badly, and saw Lily holding a framed picture. Maria. Their wedding day, both of them young and hopeful, and completely unprepared for what life would bring. "That's Maria. She was my wife." "Where is she now?" Sophie appeared in the doorway, looking worried. "Lily, honey, you shouldn't—" "It's okay." Ryan knelt to Lily's level. "Maria got very sick, and even though the doctors tried their best, they couldn't make her better. So she went to heaven." "Like Grandpa?" "Just like Grandpa." Lily studied the photograph with the serious intensity only children can muster. "She looks nice." She was nice, the nicest person I ever knew. "Do you miss her?" "Every day." Lily considered this. Then she said, "It's okay to miss people. Mommy says missing someone means you love them a lot." "Your mommy is very smart." I know. Lily handed him the photograph. You should put this where you can see it, so you can say good morning to her. Ryan took the frame, his vision blurred slightly. That's a good idea, Lily. Thank you. She nodded, satisfied that she'd solved an important problem, and ran off to find Ghost. Sophie moved closer. I'm sorry. I should have told her not to go through the old boxes. Don't be sorry. She's right. Ryan set the photograph on the mantel, next to a picture of Sophie and Lily from last Christmas. Maria would have loved this. The house full of life, a child running around, a dog in every corner. You think so? I know so. He pulled Sophie close. She wanted us to be happy. That's all she ever wanted. Are you happy? Ryan thought about the question. 6 months ago, he would have said happiness was impossible, that Maria's death had carved something out of him that could never be replaced. But now, standing in his wife's family home, with a new family forming around him, he understood something important. Happiness wasn't about replacing what was lost. It was about making room for what came next. Yeah, he said, I really am. The ceremony happened on a Saturday. Sophie had organized it, a community gathering at the diner to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Hargrove arrests. Everyone was invited. Everyone came. The diner was packed. Fishermen in their best clothes, families with children, veterans from Ryan's program. Even Agent Cross made the drive from Washington. Earl gave a speech about resilience and courage. Mary Ann, fully recovered, walking with a cane but walking, spoke about the power of standing up. Sophie talked about second chances and what they meant for a community that had forgotten how to hope. Then everyone looked at Ryan. He hadn't prepared anything, hadn't expected to speak. But Sophie was nodding encouragingly, and Ghost was sitting at his feet like he belonged there, and the words came anyway. A year ago, I walked into this diner looking for a cheap meal. I was broken, and barely holding on. The only thing keeping me alive was my dog, and a promise I'd made to my wife that I wouldn't give up. He paused, collecting himself. I didn't come here to be a hero. I came here to investigate the people who'd destroyed my family. I was angry. I was grieving. And honestly, I was looking for a fight. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. But something happened that I didn't expect. I found a community. People who had suffered under the same system that had hurt me. People who were scared but not beaten. People who just needed someone to take the first step. He looked at Sophie, at Earl, at Mary Ann, at all the faces that had become familiar over the past year. I didn't save this town. We saved each other. Every person who came forward with evidence, every victim who agreed to testify, every neighbor who offered food or shelter or just a word of encouragement when things looked impossible. This is your victory, all of you. Ghost stood up and pressed against his leg. Ryan rested a hand on the dog's head. My wife used to say that God doesn't always stop evil from happening, but he gives ordinary people the strength to stand up when it matters most. I didn't understand that for a long time. I was too angry, too focused on vengeance. He took a breath. But now I understand. The strength isn't in winning. It's in fighting. It's in refusing to look away when everyone else does. It's in choosing hope over despair, love over hate, community over isolation. He raised his coffee cup. To second chances, for all of us. The crowd raised their cups in response. To second chances. After the ceremony, after the hugs and handshakes and tears, Ryan found himself alone on the diner's back porch. Ghost lay beside him. The sun was setting over the water, painting everything in shades of gold and red. Sophie found him there. Hey. Hey. She sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "That was a good speech." "I didn't plan it." "The best ones are never planned." She took his hand. "I have something to tell you." "What?" She was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm pregnant." Ryan stopped breathing. "What?" 8 weeks. I found out this morning." Sophie's voice trembled. "I know we haven't talked about this. I know it's fast. I know—" He kissed her. It was sudden, instinctive, the only response that made sense. When they broke apart, both of them were crying. "Is that a good reaction?" Sophie asked. "That's the best reaction I've ever had to anything." Ryan pulled her close. "A baby. We're having a baby. We're having a baby." Ghost's tail started wagging, picking up on their emotions, and Sophie laughed through her tears. "I think he approves. He has good judgment." Ryan looked down at the dog who had saved his life. "Better than mine most of the time." They sat together as the sun finished setting. Ryan thought about Maria, about the children they'd wanted but never had, about the dreams that had died with her. But he also thought about Sophie, about Lily, about the community that had become family, about the veterans and dogs finding purpose together, about the new life growing in Sophie's belly. Maria would have wanted this. She would have wanted him to live. A year ago, Ryan Mitchell had walked into a diner with nothing but a dog and a death wish. He had found corruption, violence, and evil at its most banal and brutal. But he had also found Sophie, found purpose, found home. The waves kept rolling in below the bluff, steady and eternal. Ghost settled his head on Ryan's knee. Sophie leaned against his shoulder. And somewhere in the house behind them, Lily was probably convincing Earl to let her have a second piece of pie. This was his life now. This was his second chance. And he was finally, completely, at peace. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment about where you're watching from and what this story reminded you of. Subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and quiet strength. And remember this: evil exists. It always has and always will. But so does courage. So does love. So does the simple, stubborn determination to do what's right when everyone else looks away. Ryan Mitchell learned that lesson in a coastal diner, watching a young woman get hurt and choosing to act. He learned it again in hospital rooms and courtrooms and federal offices. And he's still learning it today, every time he matches a broken veteran with a dog who needs purpose. The world isn't saved by superheroes. It's saved by ordinary people who refuse to stay silent. Be one of them. May God bless you and keep you. May He give you courage when fear whispers, and light when the road seems dark. And may you always remember that you are never alone, and that goodness still has power. Sometimes the miracle isn't thunder from the sky or fire from heaven. Sometimes the miracle is just a man who sees something wrong and refuses to look away. That's the miracle. That's the light. And it lives in every single one of us, waiting for the moment we choose to let it shine.